into another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No fucking play is that a gimme, right?
Well, it's another edition of Gas to get you going this morning. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. Who is this guy? Look at this hair. You're all trimmed up. What, do you got, a court date?
Are you talking about trimmed up with the beard?
Yeah, look at this guy.
Well, what's funny about the beard is I basically shave like once every 2-3 weeks. That's like what I do. And when I shave it clean, my wife doesn't like how I look. She likes a little scruff. So I sort of grow it to what you're looking like right now. And then I shave it off. But the lettuce on top is hilarious. I think 9 out of 10 comments I get is sarcastic, talking about like, what is going on with the mop up top? But hey, it is what it is. We let it flow. We ain't going to Turkey to get any procedures done, so we just let it flow. But it's good to see you healthier than last week.
Oh my God, yeah, I was dying last week. I've kind of survived a busy Memorial Day weekend for me with doing all of the national stuff. I'm still working on the bunker here. The lighting isn't perfect just yet. I'm kind of fiddling with that. I had a whole idea of moving my whole studio space. It's been a goddamn disaster. Everything I put up on the walls fell down when we went to Vegas a couple weeks ago. It's a complete S show up here right now. So bear with me, as it looks like I'm literally in a bunker, which when I watch the Red Sox, I wish I were in a bunker. And maybe Cora might be wanting to crawl into a bunker right now, Jay.
I'm glad that like I said last week, that I don't ingest all 9 innings, because it sort of is painful, the up and down. Certainly upset that Alex Bregman goes down with the quad. And you can tell oftentimes the way the player reacts when they get injured. For those who didn't see it, Bregman knew right away. You could tell it wasn't just going to be a couple days. I guess he had a quad injury back in Houston that you were talking about earlier, or in a pre-show meeting. But for me, we talked about this last week, and we could talk about the mid Red Sox, as you like to call them, 27 and 29 right now. And, Devers been on a tear. But for me, right, I talked last week about locking up Bregman long-term. Better do it now, right? Value low, lock Bregman now. I'm just more in this for the long term, like Garrett Crochet, not really getting run support, like sort of still trudging along. But yeah, I'd rather be 29 and 27 than 27 and 29.
Well, the 6 and 14 and 1-run games this season is kind of a number that really bothers me, because that's about your bullpen, in my opinion. And some of that is also base stealing, fielding, but I really think it kind of is reflective of a bullpen that's had some issues. And look, what some of the people have done in terms of getting on Liam Hendriks is ridiculous. It shouldn't be threatening his wife and things of that nature, but it is reflective of some of the lost opportunities for this team this year. And Jay, I was riding around this morning doing some stuff for my wife's business, and I was just kind of bebopping around, being like, okay, what are people talking about? Every time Cora came up, it was, how much longer are they going to give him? And to me, it's the wrong move to get rid of him. We touched on this last week, but the temperature is being turned up, and they're on a 3-game losing streak now, something like that. If it's a prolonged one, I just wonder if this is when the Red Sox, instead of saying to Alex, we're going to bring up the young kids and nurture them, they say, no, maybe you need to go, and then we'll bring the young kids up. I hate that I have a very bad feeling about it for Cora.
I'd be surprised to see it imminently. I don't think we're going to see that very soon. In Garrett Crochet's last 3 starts, he's only given up 5 earned runs. Those are all 3 losses, right? If those are wins, flip your record, right? Then we're looking at 30 and 26. So I still think, it was a lot happens in the NBA in a week, even postseason, even regular season. But in Major League Baseball, yeah, it was a bad week for the Red Sox. But ultimately, I still think they can win games without Alex Bregman, right? Still like when you lose your first baseman, you lose your third baseman, and you're sort of grumbling along. It's not a very fun follow at this point.
Well, and the other thing too, Jay, is you have so many people that are like playing out of position now. So you've got this guy here, that guy there. Devers doesn't want to move to first base. So you're going to take a young guy and put him over there. If you put someone young over there that's worth a damn, then what you're saying is, the incumbent first baseman is no longer a big time prospect in Tristan Casas, and maybe they're going to move on from the guy. So I wonder how they're going to handle that move. That screams, you're the Red Sox. Go rent a first baseman for the rest of the year, for God's sakes. Go get your Doug Menkiewicz to come in and play the remaining 100 games at first base. But there's just a weird feeling. I have a weird feeling about what is about to happen. What should happen to me, Jay, is very easy. Let's put people where they should be playing. If the youngs are ready, call them up. You have no reason to not play out the string and let these kids go get a bunch of run. But I just don't think it's going to be that easy with them. And I hate it that I hope you and I are sitting here 2 or 3 weeks from now and saying they've weathered the storm. I don't know. I just have an odd feeling that something bad's about to happen.
Well, and weathering the storm without Alex Bregman. But what do you think in terms of Alex Bregman? Right? Like, let's say he is out for an extended period of time. Like, do you think I'm just full of shit in terms of like really wanting to lock this guy up? Like, I don't think you given enough time. It's hard to change the culture, in 6-8 weeks. And now not being a player, right? Not playing. You talked about Kendrick Bourne, I think, in the past, not being an active wide receiver. Hard to sort of be that guy in the room if you're not playing. So I don't know. Like, don't you think maybe trying to sort of get in the room with Alex Bregman and say, hey, I liked the mojo with him. I like it less without him.
Well, if he's going to have 2 months to end the season where he could tear it up, and then say, all right, I'm healthy. Look at what I did the first 2 months and the final 2 months. Then I think he may leave the door open. I wonder if the reason Alex Bregman may not be willing to jump in with both feet, Jay, is because what's the plan? Where are they going long term? If you're Bregman, don't you want to know, here are the plans that we have. Here are the kids that we have. We are willing to spend money more than just on you. And if you're Bregman, I don't know if it may be as much about performance or fit as it is, what does that guy really want? If he wants dough, then he should stay here, right? If that's and no one would begrudge the guy if he was like, F it, I just want to make as much money as I can. I don't care where I play. But if the guy does care about the other stuff, then the Red Sox, I think, have some splaining to do to be able to reel him in more than just trying to lure him with money.
And we talked a little bit about his relationship with Alex Cora and if that would impact his decision.
No question.
I actually think he could get a bag other locations besides Boston. You know what I mean? I think there are other teams that could potentially. I understand the Red Sox deal was most favorable this offseason. I just sort of, to me, bringing him into town, I really looked at him as sort of a big piece of the near future and not the singular season, if you will. So I guess for me, this sort of offseason with the Red Sox, while it wasn't the Patriots offseason, it felt like more than sort of a 1 year offseason. So for me, as we get to the end of May, talk to me in a month in terms of punting on this season.
I'll tell you what, I think if I'm Bregman and I'm going to be out 2 months rehabbing this thing, I'm going to be watching what these young kids do. Whatever group, whatever combination, Jay, that gets in there, if they have good attitudes and they got some talent and they show it a little bit, I would hope that someone like Bregman might look at it and say, okay, I can see the future with these guys. They have good habits, and it might be one of the things that gets him to the table or think about staying here long term. I hate that I feel like this is really teetering, right? You and I have discussed what sounds like some reasonable answers and a path to be able to move forward and keep Alex Cora. Yet I feel like it's one of these, it's like an earthquake, and will it stop or will it crumble as the earthquake is going on? And it feels like right now there are some tremors underneath Fenway Park. And look, I hope this is much ado about nothing, because I don't think Alex Cora should be gone. But just because I think Cora should stay, it doesn't mean I believe in this team. At some point, they're going to have to look at themselves hard and say, are we going to make the pivot and play the young kids? Or are we going to maybe do something else with them and try to improve the club right now?
I'm with you. And I play him sooner rather than later. I couldn't agree with you more. In terms of Cora, Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily the big X factor here as much as you and I may like him. I think it's going to be up to the team performing. It's just been a weird, funky year, right? You put up 19 runs in one game and then you're losing bookend games around it. It's just sort of been ugly all around and some defensive issues, So I think it's a little bit of a hodgepodge, but I guess for me, I wasn't looking at them as sort of a top tier contender this season anyway. Do they feel a little less in the mix a week later that, as we come to you once a week on Gas on Tuesdays at 11 a.m.? Yeah, they feel like far less of a contender, but really for me, solely because of the Alex Bregman injury.
Yeah, well, we'll see if they can wade through this. They got the Yankees coming up pretty soon, so let's see if they can straighten that out. The Yanks are playing pretty well, and Aaron Judge, Jesus, the year that guy's having again. There was a year where, was it Juan Gonzalez in Texas? This was like, he was roided tits out, right? I think his first half, Jay, was like 280 with 30 bombs and 90 ribbies. Insane. And I wonder if Aaron Judge is going to have one of those type years at some point in his career where his half year would be a great season for someone else.
No, it's a great point. And I just want to bring up something Cody put in the chat, which is so true about Trevor Story, right? Who's not making nothing and not injured this year, but certainly feels like it, right? Cody says his pronounced struggles over a month long at this point, batting 126, 14 for 111 with 1 home run, 6 RBIs, 39 strikeouts compared to 6 walks since April 22nd. I mean, that is a giant hole with a giant paycheck. So if you want to look at certain reasons why they're not getting it done, that's a big one.
Oh, no question. And that is the lasting impact of Chaim Bloom. That was the first big Chaim Bloom signing.
Yep. And
it looks like, the Red Sox still have a couple more years where they're stuck with Trevor Story. This smells like the great shortstop liquidation sale under Theo, I think it was, where they gave away all these shortstops and like paid half the money. I think they gave one to, I forget which shortstop it was. They gave to like the Marlins and they won with this guy and the Red Sox are paying for it or whatever. That's what this smells like, is that Story will get traded. They'll ship, a year's worth of salary to have somebody just take him off their hands. But he stinks. And he got hurt early and just never got going. So to me, he's one of those Coors Field guys.
I agree. And when he was trending in the wrong direction when they signed that deal too.
There's no crazy. By the way, Aaron Judge right now in terms of average, even though I know, Jay, we've been told by all the baseball nerds that we're supposed to worry about Rolf or whatever in the hell. Aaron Judge is batting .398. I mean, at the end of May, that's crazy. It's not like George Brett taking it deep into the summer, but still, you go through 2 months as a big league hitter and you're hitting 400. That's a hell of a start.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't really give a shit about regular season baseball, especially the Yankees, right? It's like I wish them all the best of luck getting back to the World Series, and I wish them all the best of luck winning the World Series. So right. Aaron Judge needs some hardware. Like, yeah, it's fun. I hope the Yankees fans are enjoying it. I just wish the Red Sox would make some noise because it really is a lot of fun when they're in the mix. Probably more fun for Yankees fans if they're being honest.
Well, you know what? We lived through, I would say 03 through 07, 08, when it was really Manny and Ortiz. Like seeing Manny, Yankee fans watching Aaron Judge, it must be like when we got to watch Manny come to the plate and you just know that he's going to do something. And I really miss the days of Manny and that excitement for Red Sox baseball.
Yeah. Well, Judge is putting himself in certain conversations very quickly. Almost reminds me a little bit of Scotty Scheffler in golf, where, we're looking at an all-time on one hand, all-time great. You know what I mean?
And good for Scheffler to win the PGA. I know you and I didn't touch on it, but literally to the day from when the guy got arrested in Louisville, he won the PGA championship. I mean, you can't write a better story. You would almost think The Onion wrote that story. Man going to PGA, got arrested, and then won it the next year.
He's just it's really unbelievable for those of you who are golf fans out there, right? To like, we're looking, we got another Tiger Woods on our hands. Like, we got another Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods. Like, the guy Scotty Scheffler is in that conversation. He's won, can't have what 15 golf tournaments he's won the last few years. I know it's maybe 3 majors, but I just think this guy is special. I mean, just everything he hits goes exactly where he wants it to go.
And he just looks like a normal guy. That's the other thing. Like, Tiger looked like a real athlete out there. Scotty Scheffler looks like the kind of guy who would, like, roll up to a local country club and say, here, get my bags out.
But yeah, no doubt about it. But when I make the Tiger Woods comparisons, I mean, Scotty Scheffler is beating the field by a significant amount of shots in some of these tournaments, and he is doing it in an era where I believe there's far more competition across the board, not even in terms of just the talent around him, but in the equipment. And I know the Live Tour has put a little, curveball into it, but Cody's putting up in the chat, Knicks suck, LOL, or whatever he's put. I pump the brakes on that. I still think the Knicks have a chance to win a championship this year. So as I see the basketball, I guess we can talk about the Celtics. I hope we'll get to the conference championships as well.
Oh, we will.
But, in terms of, keeping it Boston, keeping it New England, as we shift to basketball here, in terms of who will the Celtics trade, gosh, I go to Los Angeles every summer in between school and camp with my daughters, and we're going out there again. And I remember watching the NBA Finals out there last year. And am I going to be watching, like, the Knicks in the NBA Finals? I see this. And we get to talk about who the Celtics will trade, not this conversation that should be happening a couple weeks from now because they're still playing basketball. Hey, as a Celtics fan, it's just painful to watch Indiana and New York. I really believe the Celtics are better than both of those teams. It's a tough pill to swallow.
Oh, it is. And now that you hear the Browns got the knee injury, and of course Tatum with the ruptured Achilles, and it looks like he may not be back until January or February.
That's okay.
But Marc Stein, a longtime NBA insider, said that the Dallas Mavericks are going to be looking for a point guard, and then maybe Jrue Holiday might fit their fancy. Now, Holiday did get an extension. There's a couple of years left on the deal, so maybe there'd have to be a third team. But apparently, Dallas needs to go point guard shopping because of the issues surrounding Kyrie and the fact that they traded Luka. And I just did this exercise this morning, Jay. If you wrote down the Celtics roster and you just cross off Jrue Holiday, are they still the best team in the Eastern Conference? And right now, with existing roster, the answer is still yes, and that's no disrespect to Holiday.
I agree with that. I said ad nauseum, I felt as though the Celtics could survive a really big injury, whether it be Porzingis, even Derek White. I don't know about that one, right? But even a guy like let's say Jaylen Brown went out and not Tatum, right? Do things look good? Like, I think they're that good that they could have survived that, but they threw up all over themselves early in that series to make the point I just made moot. But yeah, if you're asking me who's the expendable guy, it probably is Jrue Holiday. I absolutely love the fit in Dallas on so many levels. You're looking at a guy in Jrue Holiday, won championships in multiple places, and gosh, he's the last guy that I want to leave that locker room in Boston. But things aren't going to be the same as they were. So things are going to shake out. We talked last week about Porzingis perhaps having most value staying put, because I don't think you're going to get too many takers, and you're going to sort of, whether you're paying some of that, I know you're going to matching up contracts in that situation, I think may be quite a challenge. So yeah, for Jrue Holiday, I do think ultimately he's not the shooter that Derek White is. He's not the player that Derek White is overall, not quite even the defender that Derek White is, even though Drew's a great defender. So yeah, I think he's the guy. And if you could get anything back if we're trying to get under these luxury tax thresholds, if you can get anything back in these situations, it almost feels like gravy.
I would 100% agree. It feels like it's going to be a dump. So I'm with you. If it's anything, if it's significant, my God, it would be amazing. And we would say that Brad Stevens is just a wizard when it comes to making these trades. But I'm with you. It's probably going to be please take him off of our hands. And maybe the Celtics have to pay a little bit to be able to get that done. Jay, one of the things to me that Jrue Holiday's kind of big selling points is actually something the Celtics don't need, and that's leadership. And Dallas right now probably needs themselves a little dose of leadership. If there's no Luka and there's no Kyrie, who's going to be the guy to kind of show the way? And if it's Anthony Davis, Jrue Holiday will know how to blend in. Jrue Holiday doesn't have to be a leader in Boston. There's plenty of that. And really, I would say, while it's Tatum and Brown's room, it's really Al Horford's locker room. He's the E.F. Hutton of the Celtics, and that's a guy I want to see them figure out how to be able to bring him back. But at the end of the day, if it's Jrue Holiday is one of the guys that's got to go, then I'm okay with that because they're insulated and it allows a little more minutes for Pritchard. Now, I know defensively he'll give it up, but, you know, he is instant offense coming off the bench.
Yeah, I like him more in the regular season than the postseason. My younger brother, who follows the Celtics more than I do, would disagree with that statement. He wanted to see Pritchard out there more in the postseason. You know, a statement I made last week, in Brad Stevens, I trust. I'm so glad he is at the controls here. I would have been fine with Danny Ainge being at the controls, but I think it is a very complicated offseason. But I also think in a way, in terms of transactions and in terms of shaking things up, Brad Stevens, I think, has a little bit of a gift in the Tatum injury because he has the ability to perhaps say, all right, we're not really playing for next year in a way. So as much as I'm bullish on Tatum being back for next year, I do think it might make great sense for a sneaky hard reset if they're capable of doing that. But that doesn't mean I want Jaylen Brown walking out that door.
You know, one thing that you mentioned about Tatum there, Jay, that I was thinking about earlier today was if I could bet Anthony Edwards to be first team All NBA next year, I'm going to do it as early as I can. The theory is Tatum won't make first team, not because he's not worthy of it, but you know how that goes. He's injured. He's coming back. Maybe he plays great enough to be able to knock him down to third team, and they'll put the injury in there. So I think Ant-Man could slide in to that spot for a year, but you make a really good point. Brad Stevens may not be building this team for next season. It might be the season after that when Tatum has had a full summer to be able to get right. And let's remember, Jaylen Brown's going through knee surgery as well. And those guys have played a ton of basketball together. So if next year is kind of a half reset and maybe you think you could hit some lightning or have lightning strike come the playoffs, if everybody gets healthy and Tatum can kind of figure it out. The really what's happening with Porzingis is my biggest question of the offseason. Are they keeping him and swallowing it? Or are they going to say, take one of these deals that like Cody's thrown in the chat where maybe you flip him to Golden State and you get Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, and some other people that you're probably going to cut?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it is funny when you think about Jaylen Brown, right? And having him sort of have maybe a little bit of a soft season, right? Where you're managing it a little bit. And hey, look what happened. Dallas sneaks into the lottery and now Cooper Flagg's walking through that door. So it'll be really interesting. I am interested in the conference finals, and I think we'll get to some of that as we get to the end of the show, talk about best bets of the week. But I definitely want to talk about Anthony Edwards and SGA a little bit too, even though that series looks like it may not be. I'd be surprised if OKC don't close that out going home. But let's move on to the Patriots. By the way, what Forged in Foxborough episode 2 not out yet? Like, what the fuck?
No,
like,
no.
You know,
I don't know. I guess it's leaking out slowly. My guess is I don't know when the mandatory minicamp, I think, is like second week of June. We'll probably get one after that before training camp. So that way it gives them like 2 months of stuff to work with. That's my pure production guess.
Well, what I'll say is I think they gave us, maybe an hour, 15 minutes on episode 1. I mean, you easily could have broken that into 2 or 3 episodes for me and given me one, drag this thing out. But we talked about it last week. It's just unbelievable. And, you read a lot about the New England Patriots right now. And even when we talk about the Red Sox, I'm far more interested. Everyone has their own fandom, but I'm far more interested in the Patriots months away from game 1 than early into a baseball season, right? So in terms of what's happening right now, you've talked a lot about Mike Vrabel, right? And I guess for me, we talk about this team being 4-13 the last 2 years, right? The over-under on win total was 4.5 last year. It's 8.5 right now. So it's not just us that are drinking the Kool-Aid, expecting big things out of this Patriots team. So for you, how much are you invested right now in this team when we haven't even hit the month of June?
Oh, a whole lot. Because I still think there are some roster moves to make. Did you know they still have $67 million in cap space?
Yeah, I'm interested that you brought that up. I mean,
that tells me that if they want to make a trade in camp, or if they feel like they have a hole on the roster, they would then have the ability to go do something and make something happen. So there is that. And also, I am curious, Jay, as to how much leeway does Drake Maye get early on from Josh McDaniels? Because my theory is that even if they go with the Mac plan, let's say, he's going to execute that better, and the numbers should be better than what Jones put up a couple years ago as under McDaniels. But will he have the freedom to check things? Does he have the ability to kind of override a play call? How do they set him up in terms of giving him some of the freedom that Tom Brady had within this offense at the line of scrimmage to kind of change things and take advantage of what he sees? And I think they'll have to show a little bit of that, I would hope, in this mandatory minicamp coming up, because there's no way you're not going to simulate some sort of game action. I think Mike Vrabel's been all about competition, and they're going to create some even in a couple of days.
It's interesting when you talk about, it's a great question you bring up with Drake Maye and sort of how ready he'll be for the nuances in that offense, or even how ready he would have been for the nuances in Alex Van Pelt's offense last year. There were so many moments when I was really loving Drake Maye last year where just the decision-making was so quick, right? He was making these decisions. It was always before. I remember my grandfather rolling over with Drew Bledsoe just holding the ball too long, right? Drake Maye didn't do it, but maybe it's because he isn't necessarily, looking at read 2, read 3, or so, and maybe he's making an early check. And so I don't know that. I think we'll see a lot in terms of what McDaniels allows him to do, but I hope that he's still having that ability to run, because a lot of those quick decisions, I think, were pulling the ball down, getting out there. I'm most interested to see if when he pulls the ball down to run, if he's willing to take 2-3 yards and willing to look like a dancer out there, like Jaden Daniels, who it almost like Jaden Daniels looks like there's no way you're going to be able to hit the quarterback, right? Almost like Lamar Jackson, where he's just too quick to get hit.
Well, what will Drake Maye look like with an offensive line that should be functional? Because he never really had one very much last year. When he did, it was okay, but it also led to some, like you said, Jay, quick decisions and a little bit of bad habits. They can coach those out of him, I'm pretty sure. But you give this guy a competent offensive line, and I'm going to do this study for next week. I want to know how many times they were in 3rd and 8 or longer last year, because I'm going to bet you he was not in 3rd and 4 anywhere near as much as we may think.
That's a great point.
And if you stay on schedule and you're not putting him in 3rd and 9 or you're putting him in 3rd and 4, the efficiency with McDaniels should go up a lot as long as that offensive line continues to perform. So the key, when people talk about the running game being the key to this offense, it is for that reason alone. You're going to keep the kid upright if you're 3rd and 5 or shorter versus 3rd and 8 or longer, which is what happened last year.
I agree. Bill Belichick did an interview recently on the pivot with Ryan Clark, I think Fred Taylor as well, just talking about Tom Brady and always moving the chains and the football forward. So you're in these short yardage situations all the time. And you got to think McDaniels maybe gets a modicum of credit for that and can roll some of that over with Drake Maye. In terms of the offense, right? Next year, right? We talk about Will Campbell, right? So the Patriots, 31st in the NFL in pass block win rate last season, 32nd the year before, right? Will Campbell, to me, as the number 4th overall pick in the draft, like, it's not only about winning your matchups, Will. It's about helping everybody else on the line win those matchups. So I think Drake Maye did a lot kind of with a little last year, and I think it's going to be a whole different compartment for him. I mean, might have Cole Strange right next to Will Campbell, another first-round draft pick who I don't really love that much, but, should be able to be a guard in the NFL.
I think that Strange has the inside track of winning that job. I know they were cross-training him at center last year. Maybe they gave that up with the draft pick of the kid coming in from Georgia. I do wonder if there's a chance that to protect the backside, that Mike Onwenu goes from right guard to left guard. I do wonder if putting the big guy beside Will Campbell to where A, you can take advantage of the size, but B, you're making sure you're really firming up the interior on that backside so Drake Maye can worry about it's not peeking. You know what I mean? You take away one of those things that you don't want a bad habit to develop. Or they might make a trade still. I'm not ruling out that they may add offensive line, because it seems like that's where they have their biggest hard on in terms of the roster. But you mentioned Cole Strange. I know they didn't pick up the final year option. I think over half of the first round picks did not get the 5th year option picked up. It's not necessarily reflective of their play. It's more reflective of the money you would be paying them in a lot of instances. But there's no question it's a prove-it year for Cole Strange. And I think he'll get an opportunity. He'll get the first opportunity, Jay. But if it don't go well in camp, put the antenna up for the Patriots, maybe looking to make some sort of move there to add another interior offensive lineman.
You know, and it's become cliche talking about, oh, Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl in the trenches, build it on the lines. Well, the Patriots have done it. And like Christian Barmore, right? Christian Barmore's contract, what is like 41 million guaranteed, what, $90 million or whatever it is,
Yep.
right? Like he's definitely healthy, right? So, you know, hey, Milton Williams, right? You're coming onto this team last year that didn't have one of their best players right next to you, right? Who they made another big investment in. I think this defensive line, I mean, I read somewhere talking about, I think it was in Mike Reese's column, talking about perhaps being the best defensive line in the AFC on the interior, right? So, I mean, it's a big, big jump with those two bodies that weren't there last year, you know?
Well, the natural pass rush, that to me is where I think we'll see the biggest jump with this defense, where it doesn't matter what combination you put on the field. You could bring in Landry, who's really a third down specialist. You still have Keon White, who every time I see the guy, the dude's a beast. Like it's just I really think Vrabel might have not have completely known what he had in that guy. And then once you get around him, it's, oh my God, we need to turn this guy loose. And you're putting him on an edge. You're not even having him as an interior rusher. There's no question. The defensive line has the ability. I'm with Reese. They can be the best D line in the AFC. And you look at how they might use a guy like Anthony Jennings, who's a long, rangy, almost like defensive end type guy. That's another dude where if you get a running back matchup on him, with his size alone, he can steamroll somebody or at least get in the face of a quarterback. The options are endless for Vrabel in this group because they have two dudes in the middle. It's more than just Williams, like you said, Jay.
And Christian Gonzalez, I just want to say his name. I mean, like, dude, I mean, I guess one thing I already doing Pilates, getting in touch with some muscles you didn't know he didn't have, but he one of the best corners in the league. I think Devin McCourty said could be the best corner in the league. But I just want to bring one more thing up about Mike Vrabel, right? And this is from Mike Reese's column as well. I love Mike Reese, by the way. We talked about Mike Reese and my brother John back at the Metro West Daily News back in the day.
Mikey is one of the nicest people going, for real.
So this is, I think, a Vrabel quote. We're going to be moving. We're going to demand effort and finish. Like, I love that statement. We're going to demand effort and finish. These are from his introductory news conference. People would ask what non-negotiables are. Our effort and our finish is going to be the contract that we make with our teammates. That will be my job to make sure. Right. And then I just thought this was interesting. And this is from Reese's column this week. It's just hilarious to me at how cutthroat Mike Vrabel is. Right. Center David Andrews and long snapper Joe Cardona, the team's longest tenured players, were the only players to attend Vrabel's introductory news conference, sitting in the front row, listening to Vrabel's vision for the franchise. And Mike, don't give a fuck. Thank you, boys. Love you, boys. Get out. And it's that you have to not give a fuck. In addition to, to building the best roster and taking care of your people. Everything Vrabel does is great. I think they have a chance to make a huge jump. I say the same thing every week.
Well, and the thing with Andrews is I think it was, hey, we're okay with you unless something better comes along. And maybe that's the part that it didn't click with Andrews of the, oh, here comes Bradbury. What are they going to cut me? It was pretty easy for them to do so. And when they drafted a snapper, it was the writing on the wall. Let's remember, if we're gonna give Vrabel credit, then do we have to give Gerard Mayo credit for trading Mac Jones after Mac was there uncomfortably at the Gerard Mayo press? You may not remember that. I know Jonathan Kraft wasn't there. That was the big one. But yeah, Mac was there in the back of the room standing with Danny Kraft when Mayo had that Hindenburg of a press conference.
It's so funny when you talk about Gerard Mayo and the idea that he would have any say in like a trade of Mac Jones, right? Juxtaposed to Mike Vrabel, who just feels like you almost want his opinion.
Great job, Code.
If you're
There it is. There was Mac in the back of the room. And there were people there who were like,
there's your guy, Mac. We should bring Christian Fourier on. You guys can talk about your guy, Mac. You probably are optimistic about maybe what could happen in San Francisco. Who knows? Maybe a starting job down the road for your guy, McCorkle.
Listen, I would watch Shanahan turn him around when Brock Purdy flames, and they're like, Jesus, we gave this guy $200 million. They'll be ruining that contract. But yeah, actually, Mac is standing beside. That's Matt Smith right there in that photo. He is the head of craft productions. He's almost always on the phone all the time. That's pretty funny stuff. But no, at the end of the day, you're right. Vrabel runs it like a business. He runs it the way like Robert Kraft wants it to be run now, because now Robert's realizing that some of the ways of Bill Belichick were not bad. You can't have Mr. Rogers in there running the organization, which is what he had last year. And I think Jonathan Kraft sniffed that out pretty quickly.
Let me ask you a question. Like,
please, go ahead.
I know it's early. But I think both of us think the Patriots most certainly, if all things go well and they have a great year, could sneak into the postseason. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, ceiling is 10 wins, and if you're there, you're in. Yeah.
And so if that is the case, right, I think there'd be a lot of factors, right? But in terms of them really being like the Washington Commanders, right, really in Jaden Daniels' rookie, they were legitimate contender Final Four team. Do you think the Patriots could be in a conversation like that this season, or you think that's maybe a little high?
A little high, maybe with the right matchups. Maybe. I think the Patriots, believe it or not, match up pretty well against Baltimore, and that's one of the better teams in the AFC. Now,
like hearing that.
Now, in terms of how the Patriots will deal with Buffalo, I think Buffalo has kind of the guy right now, the ace in terms of Josh Allen. But if you can build an offense that can score with them, do it methodically, and then you get a couple of defensive stops, there could be a formula for beating Buffalo, but I think it's a little too early for that. I don't think they're as good as Kansas City. Kansas City has Tom Brady vibes of many years right now, and I think New England can sort of punch him in the mouth as an underdog, but ultimately there isn't enough there. Are they better than the Chargers? Like on paper, probably not ready yet. So I would say no, but if you get, say you beat somebody in the wild card round, then in the second round you get Baltimore. It's not out of the realm of possibilities that you pull an upset given the D-line you have, score some points on the road, maybe kicking game helps you, and maybe you could backdoor your way into a conference title game. But it has to be the right circumstances.
Well, and I think the Drake, it all just still comes back to the quarterback for me. And I think there's so much unknown given what he was operating in. And I wanted to be glass half full last year. So it's like, I don't know too much about Alex Van Pelt, but it's hard for me to imagine. I think Drake May looked pretty confident, all things considered, last year. And that blows my mind. I don't know how he could have looked confident last year. It's almost like he was faking it. So I think he's actually going to have legitimate confidence. And I think Vrabel, you know, you think about Milton Williams, some of the ways in which he's pushed him. We talk about conditioning, right? But I think Vrabel has that really unique ability to sort of push you and you love him at the same time. Head coaches can't always do both. And I think sometimes, especially for a kid who's just 22, I think that's going to be a really good elixir, if you will.
I would agree. And that's why the plus 120 on the Patriots to make the playoffs is decent value, because you have a coach who he's going to challenge you. And I think you're right. You know, that to me was the biggest mistake of Maye was you're a former player. You have a level of credibility to be tough on these guys, but still love them. And instead it became, I'm just going to love them and not really be hard on them. Whereas Vrabel, I think, can balance both. And you mentioned the Forged in Foxborough. Seeing Vrabel with the, like you said, what are the non-negotiables, but also the way he dealt with the team, you know, called whomever it was up, had the little push-pull with them, gave him a little pat on the ass or whatever. There were a lot of guys who you could tell kind of like that. It was genuine. It felt like a real football coach. And
yes,
that's the thing. There's a vibe with Vrabel. The Vrabel vibe is very real. When he walks into a room, you know you're talking to a football guy who is also not afraid to tell you what time of day it is if need be. And
Yep.
Vrabel comes across as a guy who doesn't take any shit, but he's not a continual prick about it.
Yeah, and I also think he has positive energy about him, right? Like, whereas I think Belichick perhaps at times could be a little bit negative, right? And so I think Belichick, and I just think Vrabel's the type of guy that if I'm a young player, he almost feels like and I had something going on in my life, some personal, Vrabel feels like super approachable, and that feels like an extra sort of gift as a head coach. I just think he's going to get the most out of a lot of these guys. I think health is going to be a big part of it. I'm excited to see what happens with Drake Maye. Excited to see Barber more healthy. I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I really do. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Notice how Vrabel's wearing number 51. Is that Mayo's number in practice?
I love it. It's great. God, what a ribber. It's so fantastic. Did I get to ask you yet about the flag football in the Olympics and the owners voting that these guys can that the players can play flag football maybe in 2028? I can't remember if we did this last week.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
What do you make of by the way, the NFL owners? It's very cute. They're trying to sell it as well to promote the game, both domestically and internationally, and be able to deflect away from the concussion lawsuit that we got our ass kicked in. I've been trying to tie it up in court before we pay any of these bastards. They get a whole resolution, whereas blah, blah, blah. Okay, so they okayed that the players can go to the Olympics. And when Drake Maye tweaks his goddamn back, running around like this Daryl Doucette quarterback who wants to be the quarterback of these teams, we're going to be all ticked off when, he gets an arm injury playing in some stupid exhibition over in whatever country they're crookedly paid for it through the IOC.
Oh, it's so interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm all about it. I'd love to see, let Brady go play, or let some of these older guys, let Mac Jones go play, but I don't know if I'd want Drake Maye. Most
Can you imagine if Brady, though, at like 51 says, I need an Olympic gold medal and wants to be the core? I never thought of that, dude.
Well, who's the quarterback for France? I mean, right. So I think I'm trying to get my daughter to play flag football, but yeah, I mean, I'm down with these guys playing it. Seeing football in the Olympics, hard for me not to get excited about that.
Well, it's it was interesting that the NFL decided to let that happen. I would not rule out any money changing hands from the IOC and the NFL under the table. Tush Push is still allowed. However, the vote was really close, 22-10. So just made it by a whisker. It feels like the Tush Push's days are numbered, but Mike Vrabel is going to be the next guy to exploit this. That, right? I'm really
sure the Patriots, you can be sure, had no problem with the Eagles continuing to do what they did.
Vrabel and crew, they were one of the 10 who voted to keep the thing. And it's crazy that they even had to vote on that, but it is what it is, I guess, at this point, as Belichick would say.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately back in 2006, I think there was a rule in terms of pushing a ball carrier from behind, and and that, I guess they never enforced it, so they took that out of the rule book. But that would obviously be the solution. And
rewrite the rule.
But if I have to vote in a vacuum, it doesn't feel like I wouldn't mind them not pushing a guy. But I think what the Eagles do is far beyond that. So,
yeah, look. Take advantage of it. If it's in the rule book or not in the rule book, then go ahead and make it work. I'm going to ask you a question that I ask people on national radio about the NBA playoffs so far, if I may. I did one of those match game questions where the NBA playoffs this year have been blank. And I got a lot of, in fact, I had some of the ones that people said that I wrote down. Some had exciting, boring, shocking, dang, stinking good was what one hillbilly had, scary, physical, transitioning, and unpredictable. So how would you describe these NBA playoffs so far, Jay?
Well, I'm not going to answer it as a Celtics fan, right?
That is true.
The NBA playoffs as a Celtics fan have been shitty as fuck. Right. But as an objective fan, they've been riveting. Absolutely riveting.
Okay. So the non-Celtic fan in you has dug the playoffs, but the Celtic fan in you, this has been the shits.
No question about it. But I also, as an objective sports fan, I root for underdogs. I root for, my brother always says, nothing greater than seeing a fighter become a UFC champion for a first time. So the fact that we're getting an NBA champion fan base this season that either has never realized a championship before or hasn't since 72, 73, I believe is the Knicks. So for me, that's very interesting objectively as a fan. And while the Knicks winning it is my nightmare, just the same way it is for Jaylen Brown, that's super interesting. I think the Pacers are a very interesting story from the state of Indiana basketball, right? And Halliburton is interesting. And to me, right, you get a guy in Anthony Edwards who everyone's talking about the next guy. To me, it's SGA every time. I want to become an OKC fan. I know Cody doesn't like watching them play defense, but SGA like doesn't shoot a lot of threes, like a lot of free throws, a lot of mid-range twos, gets to his spot. Let me watch him play all day long. If I'm Joe Mazzulla, I'm putting on film of SGA and I'm saying, fellas, like we don't have to make it this hard all the time. So, I'm into it.
And tonight, Indiana is -2. They're -135 on the money line. I like Indiana. It's 2.5 at Sportsbook Rhode Island, and 2.5 at DraftKings. I got 2 on my local book. But man, Jay, there's something about the Pacers that have that feel of like 03-04 Pistons, where they don't really have a superstar, but they have a couple of guys who are playing high end. And really a big difference maker for Indiana has been Aaron Nesmith. And who would have thought the guy that was traded away from Malcolm Brogdon, who ultimately got traded away for something else and the whole kicking it down the road, that guy has been an X factor in this series. And there is a different kind of feel to Indiana right now. I just feel like the Knicks are so stagnant offensively sometimes, and you don't know who's going to step up. Like Karl-Anthony Towns did last time out. I don't think he's consistent enough that you can count on him. So there's a lot of pressure on Jalen Brunson, but I love the way Halliburton's getting people involved early. Halliburton is a better Rajon Rondo. He's an all-around guy who can score, but only really does it when he needs to. He's a better player than Rondo, but in terms of stylistically, whereas Brunson's a ball hog, basically, and he's out there dicking around until he can get an angle or make a shot or get a free shot. Halliburton's getting everybody else involved, kind of the way Rondo did, and his kind of comes in dribs and drabs.
Gosh, I feel like if Rajon Rondo was leading that Celtics team for the games 1 and 2 against the Knicks or the Pacers team in game 3, all 3 of those teams hold that 20-point lead. The point guard needs to get that done. But it really is interesting for me when I look at, blowing a 20-point lead like that. And I think the Knicks did figure out some things on defense. It is unbelievable how that team, once they get down 20, they become a different team. And Karl-Anthony Towns, whether you like him or not, is a supremely gifted basketball player. And when he's locked in, is really, really dangerous. I think the Pacers maybe got shaken a little bit in their confidence last night. Aaron Nesmith with the sprained ankle, we'll see how healthy he can be. Indiana is deep, but to me, when you blow a game like that, and look, there's a reason why this is basically a pick'em game, couple points here or there. The Knicks can most certainly win this basketball game. So I think for Indiana, I think, as they said in game 2, they knew the Knicks were going to come out really hungry, punch them in the mouth. They look to punch them in the mouth first. I think they need to do that, but I like the Knicks tonight. Yes, I do the emotional hedge where I bet on the Knicks and hope that I'm paying for losses. The Knicks getting into the NBA Finals is my nightmare from a gambling standpoint. Keep in mind, I have a 42-1 ticket on the Indiana Pacers to win the Eastern Conference, right? So that's a bet that, just to give you a little context, my brother John, for his 2 bosses, every year he buys $10, $1,200 future tickets. And the Pacers was one of the ones I suggested. So John gave me that ticket. So I have the Pacers 42-1. You can be sure I've hedged on the Knicks, but I am hedging on the Knicks in part because I don't want them to win. So I don't know what I expect tonight, but I'll be all over the Knicks in the sports book.
I can totally understand why there is the tug of the Knicks, because there is a lot to like for us kind of crusty New Englanders who grew up with teams that sort of did it the hard way. When you look at the Knicks, yes, they do have a flashy player in Brunson, but they're about grinding and playing defense and rebounding and stuff like that. You mentioned quickly on the SGA Ant-Man stuff. Ant-Man's finding out he needs his Jaylen Brown because OKC throws 3 high-level defenders at him. And if you look at what happened last night, he got swallowed up because there's really no difference from any of the three, and that's SGA included. So for Ant-Man, it's been a tough go. But boy, oh boy, he's got a lot of spirit, a lot of competitiveness. And I think OKC, they're going to beat Minnesota and they're going to close them out. But Ant-Man's going to have his say. Whatever, I don't know what the number is. I can look it up quickly, but I like Ant-Man over whatever point total they're going to put on him for that game, because he played like crap and admitted it after the game last night.
Yeah, but I don't know how much he admitted it. You know what I mean? He was sort of saying that he didn't struggle when you know what I mean? That I just sort of let
he didn't get up enough shots. Yeah.
But it's interesting. The guy they bring in to be his Robin, Julius Randle, 1 for 7 last night, 5 points. He had been really good in the postseason, in that trade for Cat. But you can't have a night off like that. Only 20 shot attempts for those two guys last night, right? 21 points total for Edwards and Randle. That's not enough. And a close game. SGA's cousin on the other side of Minnesota, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he was the best player on the other side. Pretty interesting, right? So he had 23 points, 9 of 15 shooting last night, but he's D'ing up his cousin, SGA. I mean, that's really an interesting piece of this series for me.
Okay. Imagine this. Jason Anik guarding younger brother Anik with
John, younger brother,
with John on the call.
Wow. Younger brother's taller, pretty good in the post. But
you're scrappy.
But yeah, I'm a guard.
And you got 2 inches from the hair.
No doubt.
So we could cheat the height a little bit.
Yep.
And John on the call. That'd be fantastic.
Yep.
That's for the Anik family reunion.
I like my chances against younger brother. John might get me 6 out of 10 times one-on-one.
Really? Like,
better shooter.
Is he,
John's
okay. All right, I got you.
I'll get in the paint. You know what I mean?
At some point, I have a half-court basketball court, and I have the windy. I got the Goal-O-Rama, so we could lower it to like white guy 8 feet if we wanted to, and really had ourselves some schoolyard fun.
I love it.
Yeah, that'd be a blast.
I'm down.
I'm down. I can watch this all day, Cody. God dang it, you're distracting me. Blanchfield against Barber. We got a fight night coming up. That is the main event. Best fight on the card by far. I'm curious for thoughts. I had a guy that I worked with at EEI who told me like a while back. He was like, you got to check out this Erin Blanchfield. It's like she's gonna when she comes on the scene, look out. And then it was, hey, you got to watch Macy Barber. And now, pretty quickly, it feels like to me, I might be dead wrong. Maybe they've both been fighting for 15 years. I have no idea. It felt like this fight got done pretty quickly. I'm so excited for it because, I just think they're going to beat the shit out of each other. It's going to be a great fight.
Well, Macy Barber will be very happy if they beat the shit out of each other. I think for Blanchfield, she would get her down on the mat and she wouldn't be able to move. And what I always say was interesting, and Macy Barber's about a 2-1 underdog in this fight, but what's always interesting for me is I can find a fighter or coach on one side and a fighter or coach on the other side, right? Yeah. I said to Bilal Muhammad on our show this week, remember the show Thursdays live. I said to him this week, Macy Barber 2-1. I think she's live. She can do it in a lot of different places. I think Erin Blanchfield is still somewhat limited. Bilal couldn't have been more with me. I was talking to Dean Thomas yesterday, and he said if Blanchfield gets it where she wants to go, it could be problems for Macy. Macy can tend to be a little bit aggressive in certain ways, and that maybe wouldn't work that well for her. But, a lot of fighters evolve and grow, right? Like I said to Dean, I think Macy is going to be at a place where she's going to control that aggression, and I think maybe can get this fight where she wants it to be and perhaps keep it standing. But, yeah, I'm excited for that one. And unless I'm mistaken, co-main event, Ludovic Klein, Mateusz Gamrot. Yeah, that is heat. Excited for that.
Good one. So we got a very nice fight night coming up for everybody to sink their teeth into. I got to tell you, I hate it when they're off. And they were off last weekend because even my wife said to me, she was like, hey, when do the fights start? It's not like if. It's hilarious. More of the when do the fights start, because they're always on in this house. Always.
That's what Dana White wants to hear. Now, is it more because you want to watch the fights, or is the gambling gotten you more? And is that you want to have some action Saturday night?
You know what? In all honesty, it's only really with my kids for the pay-per-views that we will go in and kind of play, unless we have a really strong feeling on something. But no, it really is rooted in watching some of these, I mean, there's going to be quote unquote kids, right? Youngs or guys new to the UFC that are on these cards that you can follow. Like we remember, my kid and I talk about it all the time, Jay, when Dricus du Plessis made his UFC debut. And you're like, holy Jesus, look at this guy, you know? And then the next thing you know, he's a champion at 185. Like,
I'm so
it's
glad
wild.
you brought that up. Yeah, and that's what's so interesting about, and the more I watch, right? And Cody will know this, but like Ludovic Klein, who's in the co-main event, like the first time I saw him fight, I'm like, I'm going to follow him on Instagram and I'm following his career. And this might have been 3-4 years ago, right? And then he gets in a spot facing Ignacio Bahamondes, Bilal's guy. And Bilal's like, oh, Ignacio's going to wash him. And then Ludovic Klein beats Ignacio. I'm rooting for Ignacio, who's my friend, right? Nacho has now, that's the only fight he's lost in the last handful. And now he's on a different track. But yeah, it's fun following these guys early on. And gosh, there are so many guys on this roster of 600-700 that are very, very good and have very great chance to be champions one day that we've never heard of.
Well, and the guy who you just described, for me, a lot like DDP, is, because I wasn't aware of him, was Renier de Ridder. He made such an impression. You're like, oh, it's not going to take him long before he's in some high-level fights. And sure enough, I think he's on his way to being in a high-level fight. But they're just certain dudes or certain young people. Like, I remember the first time Chase Hooper broke into the UFC, and I remember that fight. And just, you know, you're following these guys. My wife got me hooked on NASCAR too. And it's the same thing. Like, I remember seeing Ryan Blaney when he was in the Truck Series, and then he won the championship last year at the Cup level and, you know, made like $20 million or something crazy like that. Following these guys and watching the rise, even if they are veterans coming in, shit, they're new to me. So I'm rooting for them for the first time.
You know, it's so interesting when I think about like pro wrestling or NASCAR, things that I don't follow, right? I definitely follow mixed martial arts in the UFC, but I don't follow it as much as I would if John wasn't, you know, the UFC play-by-play guy, I wouldn't follow the UFC as much, right? But some of this other stuff, like the band, I used to follow golf to a far greater extent, right? I used to be, by the way, and I was just, this just popped on tennis, right? I have so much love. If you saw Nadal yesterday at the French Open, right? And then they bring in Andy Murray and Federer and Djokovic, right? And they're all like in tears all the time, these guys getting around each other. It's so unique that these all-time greats, right, have these opportunities to be around each other and all sort of retire at the same time. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I used to be more into tennis, right? So there's only so much bandwidth, right? You seem to be sort of tapped into a lot of different things. I can't catch up with all of it.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned, of all things, like pro wrestling and NASCAR, because even in the sports talk world that I've lived in forever, they will tell us at times when there are these studies of the brand loyalty. And two of the entities that have the most brand loyalty are WWE and NASCAR, which is crazy, because I do think there is, and this is UFC now as well, there's an element of, I can watch people on the rise. You're hooking me in a different way. And I know WWE, it kind of is what it is, but they have like the NXT brands on the CW. That's like their third brand, for God's sakes. So you're watching these like kids who walk out of playing college football and they're on national television in a year and a half, and you watch them grow as performers. It's all the same.
Well, and Cody put his good point. UFC fighters have to win, right? It's like, I remember when CM Punk came into the UFC, and I've gotten to know CM Punk a little. He's like gold. John talks about him just being like the best guy in the universe. Bilal's super tight with him. When he came into the UFC, he was exactly that. Just another guy in the UFC that, you know, was going to be a real uphill battle. Exactly. And it's just interesting how there are plenty of UFC fans like me who didn't know everything there was to know about CM Punk because we don't follow wrestling.
Yeah, it's wild. And even, you know, I don't go to the local shows, but the Birchfields here locally up in Rhode Island, I think they had the kid who is it Mutino or something? But anyway, he short notice fought O'Malley, and O'Malley like beat the bag out of him, right?
Chris Mutino, yes.
But afterwards, all of the UFC community was like, yo, that guy got beat up, but he deserves another chance. Like, it was almost like the badge of honor that guy got his opportunity, literally got the ish beat out of him worldwide for everyone to see. And everyone applauded him and said, we're going to give you another chance
because you were
so good at beating the shit beat out of you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a wild, what a wild sport. But that's also what makes it great, is that you can have these rare moments of these guys that rise up. And just quickly, I know you and John are good with Jon Jones, but God damn it, stop talking and can you get in the ring? Like, this is the thing about Jon Jones that drives me crazy, and I'm sorry I went down this road because I know we were talking UFC. I get it, he doesn't have to, but some people are now figuring out that the fights you didn't make are also ones that can hurt your legacy for those that are paying attention. And I know it's like chopping down a redwood tree. I get it and I understand it, but come on, man. The fight that could 100% unequivocally make you would be against Tom Aspinall, and why are you dodging it? And then I started to look into the timing of how things would happen and fights got postponed and things like that. That's going to start to stick to the legacy of this guy. We're smarter UFC fans now. And yep, he still might be the greatest and people will argue it, but there's a case to be made on the other side as to why he may not be so great. And it's moments like this that I get frustrated and want to make that argument. Sorry.
Do you think Jon Jones wants to or intends to fight Tom Aspinall at some point?
No, I don't, because the negotiating to me could be easy. For the UFC, it's like,
I agree with that.
We have a ton of money.
Negotiating should be easy. Right. I don't look at that as being the main sticking point. My brother said, and I couldn't agree more, the real robbery feels like just having Aspinall shelved here is a real robbery. But I also do take Jon Jones's word. I do feel as though he's communicated something to the promotion that they don't want to release publicly, some sort of information, whether that's I need 20 million and I want it to be next April, or it's 20 million and I'll tell you when I'm ready. Might not be in 2025. Who knows what he's saying, but he seems to be in great spirits. I said it right. I'll see him June 14th, Dirty Boxing in Miami. You can be sure he'll be there in great spirits. So yeah, I would love to know what's going on in between the ears of Jon Jones. But if I'm a betting man, I think we're getting it at some point. And I guess I'm willing to be patient, but I can't wait to watch Aspinall do his thing post Jon Jones too.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's the part of it too that I'm starting to realize are all of the people that got delayed or pushed off, or, you know, some of the timing with even like the DC fights and stuff like that. Aspinall's 32. Plus, if you're Aspinall, you're also looking at a Jay and being like, this is his Powerball, is it not? Like, this will probably be one of the, if not the biggest grossing fight that he may ever have as an individual fighter if he gets in the ring with Jon Jones.
Well, and what's he lost by not competing already, right? You know, and it's like it comes down to the Michael Chandler. You're waiting for that bag. It's a different conversation with Chandler waiting for the McGregor bag. But with Aspinall, it's got to be a very tough navigation because you're not really trying to fight anyone else right now. You know what I mean? Like, there's no,
protect his brand too. Like,
exactly.
Right now, he is the perfect opponent for Jon Jones. And I hope it gets done. I hope it was short-term frustration. I think Aspinall put something out last night on Instagram saying 528, and then it just kind of faded. So I don't know if there's an announcement coming or something like that, but I'm just really frustrated right now because I want that fight to happen. And to your point, I'm learning more about all the people that have been shelved over the career of Jon Jones because of actions of Jon Jones. And that's why I'm kind of digging in a little bit. I'm sort of going into sports talk mode on this because eventually in regular sports talk radio, there will be the discussion of the greatness of Jon Jones if he fights ever again or the day he finally retires.
And I'm in the camp of, I'm not sure the Aspinall fight would change where, Jon Jones probably is at the top of the list right now for me. And that wouldn't change if he gets starched by Aspinall in round one. I still don't look at him as a heavyweight. But Bilal questioned me very strongly when I said, are there any part of Jon Jones that would sort of be a little concerned about his legacy fighting against this beast who's a different heavyweight? And Bilal was like, not a chance. Jon Jones thinks he's the greatest of all time. Aspinall's just another dude. And I'm like, yeah, I really don't sound like a fighter.
Well, I would also say this. I do think at the end of the day, who cares about your legacy? As long as you got commas in your bank account like John Jones does, he didn't have to do anything the rest of his life. He don't want to. He can just sit in New Mexico and do peyote and stare out into the wilderness the rest of his life.
And that statement is true whether or not he takes this fight, believe it or not.
Bingo.
I'm not
yes.
suggesting that he doesn't want this extra bag, but there's a lot of different ways to get, he can act, he can sing like crazy. I'm telling you, this guy's the world.
Oh no, there's more to him. There's no question. It's going to be the when does he finally give it up with fighting? Because it kind of feels like right now, Jay, he's still kind of flirting with it, hasn't completely shut the door, but he maybe doesn't have a sense of urgency. But does he know what he really wants to do post-career? Like, I wonder if even John Jones is at a little bit of a life intersection, given his age and what is left of what he can do in the octagon.
I would love to know what the conversations are. I just would get the sense that Dana White and Hunter Campbell are probably just so frustrated, right? They're probably the ambivalence of John Jones right now, just sort of saying, oh, well, we'll see. I'm sure there's some of that going on. Because they really are caught between a rock and a hard place. You sort of got to sit on your hands a little bit, I think, if you're the promotion, if Jones is delaying.
I'm gonna make a bolt, and I know we're in gas overtime and we're almost out of here. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff, folks, wherever you are watching us. I believe that the only fighter that has forced Dana White to treat that fighter the way you would like an NBA player or an NBA superstar is John Jones. I don't think with very few people, if anybody else, does Dana White say what he does, in part to keep John Jones happy, talk about him the way he does, talks to him the way he does, and then negotiates with him the way he does in leaving the door open. This, to me, is the first guy who've kind of had almost like other sports superstar tendencies that he's so goddamn good that Dana White has had to adapt kind of his personality a little bit to be able to placate this athlete because he is so special. I don't even know if DC, and seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff the UFC has put out with the fights between these two, I don't even know if DC got Dana White to that point. I really feel like the only diva-ish kind of guy that Dana has sort of capitulated to is John Jones.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a great extent to which relationships exist in the promotion with executives and different, and so I think each fighter, I hate to say it, but is kind of unique in that sense.
And just quickly, John, because I know Cody threw in the chat, Connor for sure, a little bit, but he's still not banging away. Like Dana White gave up trying to get Conor McGregor to fight Michael Chandler. Why hasn't Dana White given up on John Jones after everything that John Jones has done? That's why I think there's that. I don't believe that.
I mean, it's a whole different conversation with John Jones. I think, you know what I mean? There's a belt at stake. Cody was saying in the chat, you called me John, but get us out of here. We are rolling.
Yeah, we are. We're rolling deep, and I guess this is what happens whenever I feel good. I got Mad Dog Radio Saturday morning, 8 a.m. to noon. Infinity Sports Network, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Download the John Anik app as well. I get those emails. Stuff is happening on the John Anik app. Make sure you download that. Follow Jay at Boston Anik. Follow me at The Real Gresh. Follow Cody at Cody_Marrow. We'll see you for gas next week.